Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Michelle.
Sorry, I'm trying to get people in. Our other
Hello,
one
Michelle. Hello, everyone.
ran a little late. Apologies for running over.
Hello,
Hey, Norman.
how are you?
Excited.
Showtime, right?
Oh, yeah, it's time to start.
Norman, can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
I didn't mean to put Corey in.
Hey Michelle, I gave everyone a heads up, letting them know that the other webinar may go until 3:50ish.
All right, so who am I? Okay, let me see who
Hi,
we're
John.
missing.
Hey,
Yeah.
Hey,
nice to see you all.
John.
Nice to see you all.
Hi, John.
Hey there.
Okay,
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
so is
Hey,
the team here? That's my quick question.
Hey, Yen.
Yes.
Carol
We're
here?
waiting on one more. One more.
I'm missing Carol.
Carol.
Yes.
Carol.
We're waiting on Carol.
Hey, Tanya, you're breaking up pretty bad.
I am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 minute.
That necklace makes up for it, though. That's what I'm saying.
How's that sound?
That might be interference. He's wearing a Faraday cage.
I had my fan on.
Oh,
Those of us 50, we understand. Is that better?
Yes.
yeah, that seems to be better.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I am going through and making everyone on your team a co-host.
Feel the power.
Assuming you won't take control and do naughty things, we are trusting all of you.
So, Michelle, can you set the screen share? Oh, I can do it now.
You can do it.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, let me make sure. Co-host,
Okay.
Alexis. Oops. All right, and I'm still looking for Carol. There she is. So we will monitor the waiting room. Do you all have someone monitoring the chat, or would you like help doing that? I guess Andre's old hat at this.
I think that's Norman's job, right?
Okay.
Hi, Carol.
Hey.
Either way is fine with me.
Hey, Carol.
Norman is fine. I think we discussed Norman
Perfect.
monitoring the chat.
Perfect.
Okay, I'll do that
Okay,
then.
I do have something want to tell. So the Chem One team, if you have a set of slides, before I move on to next slide, please give me a next message so I know to click to the next.
Okay.
Mhm.
Maybe next slide. Yeah.
Next or next slide, either way.
Okay.
Who is going to be speaking first?
I am.
Okay. I don't even have to remember to start the recording because we're already recording. So that's good.
Oh, wow.
Then I better be careful.
I will edit. I will edit. I do that, and I'm glad I did it this time because sometimes I forget.
Excuse me.
Let's see. All right, so we'll let people in. I'll do a brief welcome. This is our 10 of 10, and I'll turn it over to you, Tanya. Does that sound good?
Fine with me. We only get one shot, right?
You get one shot.
We can start over. You know, it's the last one.
No.
I thought there were no do-overs in life, but okay.
That's right. We're gonna forge ahead.
All right, here come 21 guests. Alexis, I'll let you do the waiting room from here on out.
Perfect. I got it.
All right, So if the Chem 1 team is ready to get going, we will get going.
Mhm.
Oh, you know, we're going to wait. We've got a couple more minutes. We're gonna wait.
I think this is the quietest we've ever been.
Yeah.
Well, before we begin, I just want to say thank you all so much. I really enjoyed working with you. And I hope we can, stay in touch a little bit afterwards. Okay?
Yes.
Sounds good, Tanya.
Mhm.
Well, somebody said that this is a great start of a learning community, and so I'm kind of thinking about that idea because we could really start some learning communities with all of the need for support that we have going on right now.
Michelle, I know you've been busy doing everything and we're getting ready to get started, but did you get an email from Jordan about some of our concerns with making this open to students? Or
Was
if
it?
not, we can talk about it afterwards, but.
No, yeah, we can talk about it during the webinar too, because we have those questions going on.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
I sent Michelle that question in an email, but it came up in the last Chem 2 webinar, so I'm sure we'll discuss it today. Or someone
Okay,
will discuss it
all
today.
right.
All right, so it is 4:01 and we will get going. So welcome everybody to our 10 out of 10 webinars that we have done this week for the Course Enhancements Project. So excited to hear from the Chem 1 team. We heard from Chem 2 earlier today, and I will turn this over to Dr. Gerald Goins to introduce and get going.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, administrators, faculty, fellow faculty, staff, and visitors. And welcome to, as Dr. Solar said, our 10 of 10 webinar. Today we're going to present to you the UNC System Digital Course Enhancement Project, more specifically, the Chemistry 1 course collection. Before we begin this presentation, I would like for our team to take the time to introduce themselves. Next slide, please. So I'm Tanya Gerald Goins. I am an associate professor in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry at North Carolina Central University.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Carol Babiak, Associate Professor, Department of Chemistry and Fermentation Sciences at Appalachian. It's good to be with you all. Thank you.
I'm John Brock. I'm an associate professor of chemistry here at the University of North Carolina, Asheville, in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry.
Hi, I'm Norman Shield. I'm an associate professor from chemistry and biochemistry at UNCG.
Hey everybody, I'm Jordan Polar. I'm professor of chemistry at UNC Charlotte.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yan Shen. I'm an instructional designer from NC State University.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jakia Salam. I'm also an instructional designer from NC State University.
Hey everybody, I'm Will Cross. I'm the director of the Copyright and Digital Scholarship Center, also in North Carolina State University.
Hello everyone, I'm Andre Richardson. I am the liaison for this project from the UNC System office.
So in order for us to begin our presentation, we would like to first give you an introduction to the Chemistry 1 course collection and how some of these resources were chosen. The Chemistry 1 course digital enhancement collection provides several venues for our faculty to utilize. One of them, one of those OERs is a textbook, more specifically the Chemistry Adams First Second Edition, which is the primary open educational resource textbook that we used as a team. One of the reasons that we chose this textbook is because it is a peer-reviewed, open license introductory textbook that was produced through a collaborative printing partnership between OpenStax and the University of Connecticut and the University of Connecticut Undergraduate Student Government Association. This book is different from traditional chemistry books, basically because the intention is to start with atoms first. This involves a few basic principles, such as introducing atomic and molecular structure much earlier than the traditional approach. It also weaves themes throughout subsequent chapters. Also, this approach allows for the delay of introduction of some concepts that are considered by students to be difficult and abstract, such as stoichiometry. So the use of the OpenStax Chemistry Second Edition Adams First would help to alleviate some of these stresses that students take in their first year of general chemistry, some of them that they experience. We also, as a team, provide other resources, such as suggested textbook reading sections. We also put together a list of lecture videos that are specific to the topics that we chose and that we thought would be important to focus on for a first year general chemistry course. We've also suggested some activities and/or assessments that faculty can use if they so choose to. Also, in an effort to integrate the contributions of underrepresented groups to chemistry and/or STEM-related fields, we've also put together a collection of diversity, equity, and inclusion resources. Some of these are general, and we have tried our best to include some that are more chemistry specific. So with that, we'll go on to our next slide about the open educational resources.
Thanks, Tanya. So something I bet not many people expected when they began this project was a crash course in copyright and open licensing. But the issue of how we can use, reuse, remix, and reliably point to resources over time became pretty important pretty quickly. So for those reasons, as Tanya said, we began with a foundation of openly licensed resources, what are often called OER, open educational resources. These are textbooks, videos, worksheets, and more that are free for the system, for faculty, and for individual students. So that was one reason that we chose OER as the foundation. The second is because OER have an open license, they're also reliable and editable, so they could be customized as we developed our initial set of resources. And so that individual downstream users can also tailor and localize to the various teaching styles and the diverse campus contexts that we hope will be using these resources. As you'll see, we also included a smattering of resources that are free on the web but not openly licensed. So for the final product, it's a mix of these two, and we've done our best to clearly label which are free to use but not editable, and which of them are actually OER that you can sort of remix and mash it up and that kind of thing. So that's sort of the high level what and why of open educational resources. To hear more about how we selected specific resources, I'm going to turn it over to Jackie.
Okay, you're muted.
You're muted, Jackie.
So for chemistry resources, we wanted to first create a list of resources that is available over the web. And once we started exploring, there is so many resources out there. It's a huge category. So one of the major challenges was like what to pick and what to actually choose. So we drafted an initial list of resources, which you can see in the slide at the right hand side. And we kind of categorized these resources into textbooks, websites, free lecture videos, OER video resources, OER course materials, and so on. After we gather all these resources, we kind of, and it is overwhelming, like in the web, you can see so many of them. And after we gather all the resources, we kind of have them listed and shared it with our team of faculty experts over here. So they can actually pick and choose what could be helpful for their course. So now I'm going to turn it to Jordan to give their idea how faculty team experts got together and selected the materials that will best fit their learning needs and use of resources.
Thanks, Jakai. So my name is Jordan Poehler, and like Jakai was saying, there's a huge amount of information that is on the internet, obviously, but also open access, open educational resources that faculty and students can freely choose from. Even with the amazing job that our instructional design team and Jakai did, winnowing that down to a manageable group for our faculty to look through, still, it's a very broad collection of resources that if we just dumped it in someone's lap, it would be very difficult to put together an entire course. So our first job as a faculty, myself and the other 4 faculty on our team, was to really think about purposefully what we wanted to present and how we wanted to present it. And so we knew initially that we wanted to use an Adams first approach. And so of course the OpenStax chemistry textbook was a primary example. And Tanya mentioned that a little bit. We also found other texts like LibreText. And so you'll see various textbook sections in all of the modules, but mostly the primary ones are the OpenStax and the LibreText. Okay, but you can find others and use them as you want. In terms of instructional materials, many of you have maybe some of your own online videos that you want to use for lecture sources if you have to go online. There's of course YouTube, etc. But we tried to focus on instructional video materials that were of a common theme and had a consistent delivery in terms of nomenclature, usage of terminology, things like that, so that students wouldn't be confused by various symbols and ways of teaching. So most of the instructional materials we chose from the lectures provided by the UC Irvine School of Physical Sciences, their open chemistry course. There's also UC Berkeley Online, Khan Academy, and other things in our modules, but the UCI videos are primary. And what we did, and you'll hear about this more when John describes some of the modules in detail, is instead of just listing the whole video for a particular class, we actually created stop-start times and embedded those start-stop times into the video. So the instructor, as the instructor, you'll know it's a 5-minute video, an 8-minute video, a 10-minute video. Students will be able to know how much time they need between coffee breaks or whatever they have to do to attack that resource and be successful. So, and also starts and stops without commercials at the beginning of the video. So that's a nice thing also. And then in terms of activities and assessments, what you'll find is sort of a potpourri of things throughout the internet that individual faculty found were most applicable to the module that they were trying to design. Okay, next slide, please.
Thank you, Jordan. So if you have been to the Chem 2 webinar, you will find like our project process is almost identical because me and Jackie are kind of working on both projects and we implement this very similar process. So again, this is a project with a very short timeline, but we were still able to go through the classic design process of analysis, design, development. So during the analysis phase, our instructors kind of collected the student learning outcomes, topics, subtopics from each institution, and then kind of synthesized them into a common set of student learning outcomes and topics. So, as you can see, like each instructor laid out the main topics from their institution of Chem 1. And then we kind of had a fun time during the meeting, color coding the topics to identify the common topics. And then there happened to be 5 colors, and each color was assigned to one instructor. And then those were kind of became the basis of the modules. Some of the left out topics were, I think those were moved to Chem 2. So moving on to the design phase. Again, we did a curriculum map where instructors worked on designing the modules that they were assigned with. And then they moved, starting from there, they did very detailed work of breaking down each module into a set of subtopics and then identified the learning objectives of each subtopic. And then they also collected and organized the instructional materials, activities, and assessments from the various OER resources or other CC license resources that Jordan has introduced. Like they collected all those resources and really tried to organize them in a way that's aligned with learning objectives and also in chunks that's small enough that will be easy to adopt and appropriate for students to learn. So here's an example of a curriculum map design table for one module. So it's similar to Chem 1 or Chem 2. Like every module is tied back to the student learning outcomes of the course. And then instructors worked on 3 different columns of design: the learning objectives, instructional materials, activities, and assessments. And then we also have the numbered subtopics and learning objectives and made sure all the different types of resources are aligned back to the learning objectives. So we kind of use this as a working document in the project, but our instructors really worked hard to make it consistent with the actual module pages. So the curriculum map can actually be used as a map with everything in one place. And it's also available on our Chem 1 website. And then before moving on to the development, the instructors did an internal peer review of the module design using a set of criteria, which is the same as the Chem 2 team, the Chem 2 collection. So given the short timeline, they kind of looked at, mainly looked at the alignment of the learning objectives, making sure the instructional materials, activities can help achieve the specific learning objectives. And also looked at the quality of the module elements and the collected resources. So like Jordan mentioned about the start and stop time of the lecture videos, some of the videos are originally super long, like 1 hour video. So we really want to make sure we want to present them in a way that's compatible with students' comprehension level and attention span. And then in the last phase of development, the instructors kind of assembled the materials from the curriculum map into subtopic pages. So they kind of took the things that they have planned from the curriculum map and then created more details about like the description of the resource, teaching tips for how to use the resource, license information, and I believe some of them also have answer keys if it's available. And they also developed the introduction page to give an overview of the entire module. So now I'm going to pass on to Carol, sorry, Carol, to talk about the student learning outcomes.
Thank you so much, Jan. Yes, these are the student learning outcomes that we wrote for the course. And as Jan said, this happened during the analysis stage of the project, where we shared the outcomes from our 5 institutions. We noticed that there was a lot of similarities among the outcomes, And then we synthesize them into the 8 outcomes that you see on the slide here. We were deliberate about using verbs from Bloom's taxonomy. So you'll see words like recognize, describe, explain, and so on. And again, given that these outcomes worked well for our 5 different institutions, we're hopeful that they'll match the outcomes in your Chem 1 Class 2. After we were satisfied with our learning outcomes, we used a similar process to select our module topics on the next slide. Yes, here we have our 9 module topics that are aligned with either one or more of the learning outcomes that you saw on the previous slide. One topic that you won't see here is gases. If you're looking for gases, that'll be in the Chem 2 resource collection. We talked about including gases, but out of the 5 chemists on the team, 4 of us taught gases in Chem 2, so that's where we decided to put gases. The modules are meant to be used with an atoms first approach, so they do work nicely with the OpenStax book. But if you wanted to use the modules in a different order, I think that would be fine. In fact, I know I'm going to move modules 5 and 6 a little bit later in the semester when I teach Chem 1 in the fall, because that's how we do it at Appalachian, and I think that'll work out just fine. So again, given that these topics work nicely for our 5 institutions, we're hopeful that they work nicely for your Chem 1 course too. So I think that's all about the outcomes in the modules. I think I'll turn it over to Jackie to tell us about the resource navigation.
Okay, thank you, Carol. So we got all these resources done and all the submodule pages. Now we needed a front end to actually showcase our work. So like every other team, we decided on developing a course. I'll say Chemist, not a course, it's a Chemistry 1 course collection website. And you can, from those of you who attended the Chem 2 webinar, you can see the look and feel is very, very similar. I wanted to keep the both websites looking same. So this is our homepage. Homepage is very clean. We have navigation at the top, and then we have a little bit of brief description of the project, the learning outcomes. I put the website link over here. The bottom part is not showing, but we have some buttons where you can click on explore the modules, enhance your course, and our process. And then we have a nice rotating logo of different universities who are who participated in this project. One thing I forgot to mention in our Chem 2 webinar that Jerry Welsh from UNCG, he mentioned to put a link at the bottom to go back to the UNC system homepage. So I did that for this website. I forgot to mention it in the Chem 2 webinar, just to give you an overview. Next page, Jan. Okay. So the next page is actually tells about our process. So we put the diagram in here that Jan just described a few minutes ago. Then I have like a week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, our tasks breakdown. So you can see which week we actually concentrated on what. We have some important links to important documents like curriculum map and project timeline. Also, this webinar slides is embedded in this page as well. So if any of you are interested to actually get the webinar slides, you can get it from here. Next slide. Yeah. So this is our Explore module page. I'll say this is the heart and soul of our resources. So in this page, you can actually explore all the modules. It has a little bit of brief description how to access modules. At the beginning, you have put click to view chemistry curriculum map. I know this is also in our process, but it is such an important document. I want to keep it over here. And also click to access Chemistry 1 Google Drive folder. This will give you access to the entire folder of this collection. Then you can actually explore the module content. So module 1, if you click on this, this link, it will take you to the module intro page that gives you a little bit of brief discussion. I'm not going to go into that because Jan is going to talk about that just after this. And then these are the sub-module pages. So when you click on this, you can get access to your module pages, like the subtopic pages. And at the end, you can see there is an access module 1 content in Google Drive. So this is like if somebody wants to access this content just individually in the Google Drive, they can access it here. Next. So enhance your course. This is something like what we are providing to you is kind of like a blueprint for your course. Anybody can actually adapt this easily, this instructional design documents easily and convert it into a nice chemistry course. So this page actually talks about that thing, and I put the link to the faculty resource guide for Chemistry 1 that has detailed information how you can copy this, and then how you can actually adapt it for your own course. You can either adapt fully or partially, or and then you can transfer this to your LMS and use it for a course, and very beneficial if you want to put up your course in a hurry, especially in this current situation we are in right now. Next. So this is another page I added, like with all our detailed information. So any of you need to kind of contact any of us, so you get all the information in here. Next. This slide actually has, this is like the Google Drive folder structure. You can see our root folder is Chemistry 1. Under this folder, we have all the 9 module folders. And then we have a project management folder and resource folder, support materials, and then we have a curriculum map and the website in the root folder. And if you click on one of this module 1 folder, you'll get, the structure will be something like this in the right-hand side. It has all the sub pages and also had the linked files. This linked files is something we explored the web and had a lot of resources in the web. And one thing is always a concern if you're using web resources. What if those videos goes away, or what if those worksheet that we used goes away? So one thing we did, we kind of tried to download as much as possible and put this in this linked file folder. So everything in these documents have those links in here. So just in case if something disappears, you don't have to worry. Of course, I talked with Will about the copyright issues. So this is our very simple Google Drive folder. Now I'm going to pass it to Yan. She's going to discuss about the module page structure.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. So as you have seen, like what Jackie has described, if you went to the Chem2 webinar, you can see the structure is almost exactly the same, other than the content is different. So that's what we are intentionally trying to make Chem1 and Chem2 content structure as consistent as possible. And the same with the inside of each of the module pages. We set up the same common module structure for both Chem1 and Chem2. For the introduction pages of a module and the subtopic pages inside a module. So again, the introduction page is like serving as the overview of the entire module. It ties back to the student learning outcomes. It has all the overall overview information, which you will see an examples very soon. And then on the subtopic page, we included all the key components that students will need to complete online learning successfully. And so that means we rarely keep students in mind as we design the subtopic pages. So our intention was instructors can use the subtopic pages almost entirely in their LMS with minimal adaptations. So now John is going to give us a walkthrough of one of the modules that he has developed?
So first off, I want to say it's been fun to think about how we might help people and our and fellow faculty and students in what may be an interesting fall. And so what we did was we tried to make these modules friendly and clear, and we tried to choose common elements from all of us. And within so the introduction page tells you, is not something to overlook. You know, a lot of times you want to skip right to the modules and get into the guts of it. I wouldn't skip this. I would go in to make sure that the learning outcomes in the module are what you want. And then also look at the teaching tips. The teaching tips actually have a lot of information about how you might use this module. What are some of the tricks? What are some things that we think are good about the module? There's a couple lectures that might be, that might be just okay. And then the last piece is that for almost all the modules, we tried to include a diversity, equity, and inclusion example of how we think about trying to tie someone who's underrepresented in chemistry to this module or to something that's within that module. Can we go to the next slide? So this is actually the submodule 5.1. It's just an example. You'll notice that there are specific student learning outcomes at the beginning, and they tend to be pretty detailed. And then there's a prior knowledge that you think that in a lot of ways you really need to have module 2.3 before you have this module. And just to kind of give you, to remind for most of us that those two things really need to be in order. The textbook sessions are there, and then I think we were going to show something on the next page. Is that correct? Okay. So this is actually a continuation of that page, effectively, which has all of the links. And if you look under video resources, there are a couple different kinds. The first kind is a video clip of a lecture, and what we've primarily used is a OpenCourseware from the University of California, Irvine, and primarily because the language was consistent and the professors created a sort of a narrative that was consistent. We thought that might help students rather than switching around a lot. There are exceptions to that. There were some lectures that we found within that OpenCourseware that actually had mistakes. And so we had to pull those out and put in new non-University of California, Irvine video clips to make sure that we created a consistent, valid presentation of, for learning, for student learning. If you'll click on the Lewis, yeah, that one, yeah. And if you click on it, it's actually a link you can copy. When you bring it up, it actually goes right to the site with no ads. It goes right to the section of the clip that we're interested in. And then there's a stop also that will stop automatically when the professor is done with this topic. There's a lot, in any lecture, especially a video lecture, when you go back and you look at when you've recorded yourself, you see a lot of extraneous stuff going on. So we've tried to weed that out and create, sort of a narrative that is just on topic. We tried to stay, 7 minutes. There's some examples where they're working through problems where the videos are much longer than that. And what we've done is made it so that one example is in one video, and that might be, some of those might actually be 10 minutes long. And then in addition to video clips primarily from a couple sources, we also have a simulator here where we found tools that we thought might be interesting for you to use for student learning. So this is a tool that's actually from Wolfram Alpha, which makes Mathematica. And this is and if you put in HNO3, so this is Jan's doing this, and she's being very nice to us.
Oh, okay, I can type.
And then submit. So we try to find examples, tools like this that students and faculty could use very quickly to, sort of test themselves or quiz themselves or play around with them. And we try to think about things that would sort of bring everything to life. And this is one of them. There's many of these. And we've used a lot from the University of Colorado Boulder. They have a PNET project that has a lot, PHET, P-H-E-T project that has a lot of these in them. Can we go back to where we were? Can we go to that worksheet on the next page? So besides video resources, we included worksheets and study guides. We worked hard to get permission from several faculty, some at the University of Illinois and another one at, can't think of where they are, science.net, I think, to use worksheets with permission. And we got permission from the University of Illinois to use some of their worksheets. And the nice thing about those is they have keys as well. And so if you'll pull one of those up, this is a worksheet that is actually fully editable. It's a .docx file. So this is completely editable and downloadable. So you can actually download it and transfer it directly to, say, a Moodle page or something. And the key is also there as well. In addition, unfortunately, the key is not editable because it was a scanned in document, but it's there so you could use it. We've also included textbook exercises from OpenStack and from LibreText. And when they were available, we included solutions to those as well. I believe the next slide is probably not mine. Okay.
So John just kind of walked us through an example of an introduction page and subtopic page. So again, the content structure is very similar between Chem 1 and Chem 2. So if you need to pick and choose from both collections or use like maybe Chem 1 resources as remediate materials for Chem 2, it's almost seamless. Like the material structure is almost identical. So, but if you would like, you can adopt a page entirely or just pick out individual resources inside page. So again, if you want to adopt an entire page, you can go to the Google Doc, go to File, make a copy of an individual page, or you can go to the Google Drive folder that we linked on the Chem 1 website, select a set of files and make a copy of all of them. If you're going to share those with your students, you can remove the teaching tips and answer keys and then post a link to your course LMS. So we feel like this could be a very easy adoption process. And the modules the subtopics are designed to be very small to make it more flexible. And then if you're using individual resources, you can add the resource title, link, or file to your course, and then include the license information. So now I'm going to pass on to Jordan to talk about more specific teaching suggestions.
Thank you, Yan. Thank you, everybody. So our team thought we would wrap up with some teaching suggestions overall, how you might implement and use the technology that we put together and basically curated for you guys to pick and choose from. Just some background. So I have taught online for a few years in a teleclassroom situation. If you were teaching last spring, well, then we all got to experience getting thrown into the water and having to scramble and somehow figure out how to teach online. And there's various ways to do that. But I think I was chosen from this group because I just finished teaching General Chemistry 1 over a 6-week session at UNC Charlotte. So I had 190 students. I just read all of my reviews yesterday. So I'm intimately aware of the challenges that students have throughout the semester, and also they were not shy about giving me some feedback on how we could improve delivery of online instruction. So I think the first thing I want to mention here, before I get into my slides, is please keep in mind that students are very anxious. They are very stressed out. Multiple times throughout the semester, many students have said, we have COVID, we have, race issues, there's so much going on, there's technology problems. So just think about how you can lower that anticipatory anxiety from day one, right? Have that conversation, whether we're face-to-face or not, on day one. So then the questions maybe you can ask yourself is, things like, what is your access to technology? What is your students' access to technology? Does your university require a laptop? UNC Charlotte just started doing that so that students have to have at least a Chromebook to attend school, just in case we have to go online. Many students don't have access to that, right? Many students were taking my class on their phone, okay? So very challenging. What is your access to technology? Some of my colleagues last spring, they posted their notes and said, come take the test, Some of them, I stole a Blackboard, don't tell anybody, and I put it in my guest room and I started teaching from there, okay? So what is your technology? And then think about, what are you gonna do when you're teaching and the students don't have enough data? They don't have their power goes down. One kid sent me a picture of a tree that fell on top of a power line, and he couldn't take the online exam because of that, so he was able to send me. So I had to, you have to think about, when will I excuse your work? You don't want to let, what I would always say, I'm not going to let technology stop you from being successful. Okay, so think about those things now, well before you have to make decisions about them. Next slide, please. Right, so as we start to switch from online, I would strongly recommend, I'm sure your department chairs are saying the same thing, is on the first day, if you're face-to-face on day one, you should be talking to the students about this, all right? They're really anxious. It's not looking good, right, in terms of us being able to go a whole semester face-to-face and even starting on time, we're not even sure. But another tip, the thing I did that worked really well is I started off very slow this summer. So keep in mind, it's a semester class in 5 weeks and a day. I spent the first 2 weeks with very low stakes assessments, lots of them. I give assessments all the time, but 1 points, 5 points, 5-point quizzes, 10-point quizzes. And then, and I'll talk about this in a second, I actually had virtual in-class quizzes and exams. So 20 points and 100 points. So this is out of 660 points. So you give the students the opportunity to find out that they can't do it or fix their problems, but also give them that opportunity to realize that they can figure out their technology, okay? So it took me at least 2 weeks to get 95% of the students able to do the work, get the file that I send them, do the work, scan the work, and upload the work, okay? And it took me maybe another week to get that to maybe 98%, but there were still several students we had to just make accommodations for. So be ready for that, right? Be ready for that and anticipate it. So as you switch, there's a myriad of ways to do this, right? So are you going to go with an asynchronous instruction, maybe a flipped classroom, maybe just have problem sessions that are synchronous, or are you going to have, office hours? I would suggest, if you are completely asynchronous, that you do have a lot of office hours or small study sessions, and you can do this at one time. What I did in Zoom and in WebEx is I created small groups of students, 4 to 6 students, and they would always meet together. And then I would pop in and say, okay, how are we working? How's it going? What are you guys working on? What does Dr. Polar want? And that's a little bit better than having all of your students in one big classroom that you're there just helping them work problems. So it's kind of like they're in class working in small groups. The other end of the spectrum is a resource-heavy way of giving this instruction. So what I did this summer was a synchronous instruction with assessments and activities and in-class engagement, right? So I spent time with, think, pair, share, webcams on, small group work, all in synchronous mode. And even the assessments, the 20-point quizzes and the 100-point exams, webcams on, we're recording, we're making sure people are in the session. If you're not in the session, you don't get the exam. And how do you design your assessments, right? So what do you really want so the students to show you as you try to reach your learning objectives, okay? So that was a very resource heavy. I had to hire UTAs and it was exhausting. It's a lot of grading, but I tried it and I think it was possibly worthwhile. All right, next slide, please. And then, so this is always a topic that we have to think about. If they're face-to-face, there's still possibilities of students cheating. But what I found was you need to really think about leveling the playing field, all right? So you have to ask yourselves, how much do you really want to stop cheating, okay? And on what assessments? So, for example, my low stakes assessments, the 5-point assessments, the 10-point assessments, these are all Canvas quizzes, pre-lecture video stuff. They can probably cheat. I give them 24 hours to do it. But, hopefully they don't, right? But what I did for the in-class work, right? So the virtual in-class work, I said, okay, you can use your notes. You can use your textbook. You can use the internet as long as you're just, addressing data that you need. And my only rule was, you can't get help from a different human, okay? And that didn't always work. I got emails from students telling me that lots of students, had these GroupMe, chats, and they were all helping each other and all that. And they did that on the take-home exam. But if you create your assessment so that it would take you longer to find somebody who has the right answer than to just do it yourself, then I think people will figure out that they should probably just do it themselves. Turn off that Respondus browser lockdown. So many students can just circumvent that. Don't worry, don't even use it. It just stresses people out. I did all of my exams in Zoom. Turn off the chat so they can't communicate with themselves privately. Of course, they've probably already exchanged, so they can cheat. You have to be aware of that. I required that all of their work was submitted in their own handwriting, so they can't copy and paste. They can't just, somebody can't send an answer around the whole class, etc. Okay, and they were all proctored assessments. So these are some things that I did. I think it was a lot of effort, and I'm not sure it was completely worth it to do it, quite frankly. But you're going to have to decide what you want, and this is probably the time to be thinking about it and talking to people about how you want to assess that stuff. Thank you. So I think we're done with our presentation, and we're happy to take questions and some discussion.
Can I say one thing real quick? There was a question private about the Java simulations. We didn't link to any Java simulations. Java's going away, and a lot of Chromebooks and stuff don't run it. So all the links that we have are to HTML simulations, so they should all work. Okay.
Yeah, Java can be a problem.
Yeah.
So Jordan, there's a question perhaps for you. Have we used the Respondus monitor?
I took some, I went to some webinars on Respondus Monitor and the lockdown browser and all of that. And actually after consulting with our Center for Teaching and Learning folks, I decided, and they recommended, that I just not use it. If you create assessments properly, it doesn't matter if you lock down the browser. And if you do lock down the browser, it's easy enough. If you have enough money and enough technology, then you can just circumvent that. So it really disadvantages some students at the expense of the other people who are going to choose to use a workaround there. So I did think about it, and I chose not to use it.
Okay, there's another question about accessibility issues. I'm not sure about which part of the accessibility here.
Yeah. So one thing I was running into is some students, they had to, I was, with their webcam on, they're like at work because they had to work, and they were at a lunch break, and I can see in the background that they were at a restaurant, or they're in some facility, because they didn't have Wi-Fi where they lived. They had to go somewhere to have their webcam on, right? So because I was trying to, basically simulate you're in the classroom, they had to have their webcam on, and that burns up a lot of data. And if you're not on Wi-Fi and you don't have a good data plan, then students were challenged by that. So I tried to be as accommodating as possible, but basically everybody did it. They figured out how to get online. One guy did it, he was in the car. I noticed he was driving while he was taking his test. I don't know how he did it.
So the question is about for the ADA students.
So for disability services provides, who those students are. I gave them plus 50% time on all their assessments that we typically do. There's no testing center. You can't, so I was not able to accommodate the students' needs. And then even after I gave them time and a half, I gave them almost double time, so just because the anxiety of creating a PDF and uploading it, it really affected a lot of those students, and it made it very stressful for them. But I got a lot of great feedback from the 5 students who I did accommodate. So again, just be as accommodating as possible.
So here's another question for you, Jordan. So how do you manage your virtual office hour with 100+ students?
Well, believe it or not, students don't come to office hours as often as you think they would. So I would maybe have 5 or 10 students in my office hours. I had, and also I would allow them to make appointments with me. Yeah, I mean, 190 students and 5 or 10 would show up for each session, and they're usually the same ones. So I did have about 130 students come to class. They were in the classroom, in the session, synchronously. So there was maybe some that were not there, and what I did was I did not post the videos recording until Friday of each week because the exams were Monday. So I posted my Blackboard lecture note screenshots, but I didn't post the videos until Friday. So just trying to disincentivize the not being active in class, right? Just, I think if you're sitting and watching a 90-minute lecture, it's not a great way to learn, just act, passively. But if you're in class and we're doing work, then it's similar to a real face-to-face experience.
And how many TA do you have?
Right, so the way I did it was resource intensive. So 190 students, so we had 4 undergraduate assistants and I had 1 graduate assistant. And the undergraduates had 10 hours per week for 5 weeks and the graduate student 20 hours per week. And I had all of my assistants come into the classroom 2 to 3 times a week, and so that we can do some really managed active learning. So we would just drop in on the groups and work with them for 5 minutes, then bounce from group to group, so we can really get some hands-on in-class work. That used up a lot of hours, and then the grading took up a huge amount of effort. So,
Sure. So then the next question is about the grading. So, do you recommend people to get to a scanner because of the handwriting in the answers?
So what they're doing, they don't need a scanner. They need a PDF scanner. So we spent the first week.
For you as the grader, do you need a scanner to do your grading?
No. So they uploaded everything into Canvas. That's our classroom learning management system. And inside Canvas, we can annotate their PDFs. And so they can see our annotation and our grading marks and what they lost points on. So it was a way that we could grade asynchronously.
And then do you have any set up for your students such that they can communicate with each other, helping each other out in terms of the homework assignments?
I did. So we always put people in groups, and I encourage them to turn the webcams on and exchange contact information and form study groups. But I didn't have any formal way of doing that outside of the synchronous delivery.
Okay. And I don't see any new questions coming in the chat room, so I think that's it.
Thank you.
Brother.
There was a question about peer supplemental instructors, and John typed a sentence, but maybe he'd like to tell us a little bit more about that.
We use upper level undergraduate chemistry majors as effectively peer instructors, and they have 3 or 4 times where they're available. And the nice thing is it sort of breaks down the barrier a little bit, and especially the freshmen, the first year students really take advantage of that. And it helps them connect some older students. This last year, our DFW rate it was pretty low, and I credit we had the best peer tutors we've ever had and supplemental instructors, and they were great. And so if you aren't using that now, I would really suggest it. I think it helps first year students a lot.
Yes, we also have those at Appalachian, and when we went online last semester, our supplemental lead tutors also went online, and they ended up teaching me how to use Zoom a little bit better. They showed me how to annotate their screens, so they figured it out.
So one more question here for Jordan. Which software do you use for class meeting?
So I use Zoom. Our we have that license so that we could use Zoom. I preferred Zoom over WebEx mostly because the recording and disseminating of the video afterward is much easier in Zoom than in WebEx, but they both work similarly in terms of breakout groups and chat sessions and things that I can send the students. I did it kind of old school. I brought my laptop to one of our big classrooms. It was me in a giant auditorium all by myself, and just turned on my laptop and my webcam, and the folks somewhere else, our staff helped us out with the Zoom connection. And then the TAs came in and monitored my chat window so that when students would have small questions, the TAs would handle it. And if it was a more important question, they would just interrupt me while I was lecturing because I couldn't see the chat window as easily from the Blackboard. And then I would address that question and maybe work a problem about that to reinforce that learning.
So another question is the same questions, which software we use for our class for the other faculty in the team. Myself also use the Zoom meeting for my class teaching too. What about you, John? Carol?
I did something kind of unusual. I did asynchronous video lectures, and I just used iMovie and created video lectures that were recorded. And I tried to use a lot of humor, actually, and the students seemed to really appreciate that. And then I set up a lot of office hours, like regular lecture time was office hours. And students really used that time for two things, I think. One was, to come in and get clarified and we could do problems together. The other thing was, I think they just wanted some reassurance that it was all going to be okay. And I think that by taking the weight off of a video lecture, like trying to be synchronous, I think I created some time for them to actually just, sort of hang out with me for a little bit and come around to talking about what they needed to talk about. I think that's so important for the younger students in particular.
Any other comments?
I did something similar to John when we went online last semester. I was teaching upper level classes, so I taught asynchronously, and I used Screencast-O-Matic to create video lectures. And I had Zoom office hours, and I didn't have a very good turnout. One thing that I struggled with when we went online was maintaining that sense of community in the classroom. And I would often send emails to my students like, well, I haven't heard from anyone lately, so I'm assuming that you're all okay. And then I would get a response when I did something like that.
I chose to continue to have synchronous lectures at the time that our courses that my courses met. But one of the things I did before we started the online process, I sent an email to all of the students in all of my classes, encouraging them to not give up and to continue towards toward their destiny. I also encouraged them that, we don't often, our success is not based on when things are easy, but it's really based on when things are hard. And so just by encouraging them and letting them know they can get through this, it's okay, just continue their course. I had a good turnout as far as my office hours go. As my other colleagues have said, students don't like to come, but I did make myself available, and I really depended more so on our LMS, which is Blackboard. So I tried to make sure that I would have office hours available to students. If they wanted to show up, fine. If they didn't, that's fine too.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
No more questions here.
Okay.
Oh, I just want to remind everyone of the survey. Someone posted the survey in the chat, so please complete the survey.
Okay.
All
Right. Well done. Thank you, Chem 1 team. Very, very much appreciate your efforts. This has been fantastic. And the other thing I'd like to point out is that the Chem 1 and Chem 2 teams worked very closely together. And you are the only teams, to my knowledge, that included diversity, equity, and inclusion components in your modules. And so I very much thank you for doing that. But fantastic. This is recorded, and I should stop that now before I go on and on. Thank you, everybody.
Welcome.